Welcome to Anatomy and Physiology. This is chapter 4, video number 2. So in this video, we're going to look at the first of 4 categories of tissue. And this first category that we're going to look at is epithelial. So what scientists have done is taken all of the different tissues that are found in a human body and categorized them based on their structure and function. So our first one is one of the larger of the categories, and that is epithelial tissue. And a description of it is it's mainly used in coverings, linings, and glands. So epi means upon, so that's where the coverings and the linings come from. So one way that we can use to describe this is it's mostly cells and little of something called extracellular matrix. So that's basically stuff outside of the cell. So it's non-living material. It's not made out of cells, but it's supporting structures. So there's very little of this, and we're going to abbreviate this because we're going to be talking about it a lot throughout this chapter as ECM. ECM is the abbreviation for extracellular matrix, so we don't have to write it all the time. So with our cells, most cells in epithelial tissue have what is known as an apical surface. And that just means a free surface. So it is not touching another cell or any other material. So it's just out there. Could be touching another tissue, but it's not touching like cells. And we'll draw a diagram here in a second. We have one or two attached lateral surfaces. So they're attached to other cells. And they have one basal surface, and that just means bottom, attached to what is known as the basement membrane. And the basement membrane is a protein-like or a protein mesh-like adhesive. So it's like having a thick layer of glue the cell is attached to. It's not really glue, but it's a protein mesh that allows it to be attached. These cells, or this tissue, is avascular. A in front of something means that it is the opposite, so it does not have any blood vessels. And because it's mostly cells, and we're going to see that it is not really that thick because they're coverings and linings, if there are no blood vessels, then it relies on diffusion. So I'm just going to draw a little diagram of this apical, lateral, and basal surfaces. So if we have some cells, it's forming a lining, so we end up having it just one cell layer thick. Up here would be apical surface. This would be the lateral surface. So you can see that we're attached to one cell here. This cell is attached to two on either side. So lateral surfaces are here. And here is our basal surface, and we're attached to this basement membrane. So BM would be basement membrane. So you can see that we have these layers of cells. On occasion, they might be thicker. So most cells do have a free surface, but some do not. They might be within the tissue themselves. But this is generalities. So the functions of these epithelial, there's actually 5 different functions. And these are generalized. So one is protection. So cells that are coverings or linings could be protecting things. They can also form a barrier, which is related to protection. We can look at glandular tissue that secretes things. So these can pump things out to different areas. Absorption. So not only do some of these tissues secrete things, we have certain epithelial tissues that work at absorbing things, but they are also a protection or form a barrier. And then some are for regulation. So in the next video, we're going to look at naming these or how we classify epithelial tissue.